Should the US support a regime change in Iran? Now, if you are not familiar with the term regime change, I just want to point out that it's not just some random lib word that people use, and by lib I mean liberal term that people use and just like, oh, like whatever, we want a regime change. No, a regime change is a legitimate thing. I want to first start this conversation off and just show you Trump's tweet here. Trump's tweet reads, "It's not politically correct to use this term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change?" Mega. Now, I'm not one of those people to just bash anything that Trump says. I like to take everything and analyze it, understand where it's coming from, have my own opinion. But this was absolutely absurd. And the reason why this is absurd is because of the different players here. The US is known to have participated in regime changes in many countries, including Iran. So I actually just want to show you guys now, if we have the photo of the Iranian, or the last Shah of Iran, which is a former ruler of Iran, his son, who is currently living and who I believe is currently campaigning to be the next leader of Iran if this regime change goes into place. Here we have Reza Pahlavi. Now, I just want to note here that his father's father are all named Reza Pahlavi. So you're going to hear that name over and over. The one that I'm talking about right now is the current living Reza Pahlavi. So just to read you guys a little bit from his bio here that we have, is just from actually a Wikipedia page, but Reza Pahlavi is an Iranian opposition leader and a proponent of liberal democracy in Iran. A member of the Pahlavi Dynasty, he is the eldest son of Faradiba and Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran. Okay, so now you might be asking, okay, who is the last Shah of Iran? Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. This is the last, again, just reading here from the Wikipedia page, was the last Shah of Iran, ruling from 1941 to 1979. He succeeded his father, Reza Shah, and ruled the imperial state of Iran until he was overthrown by the Iranian Revolution, which abolished the Iranian monarchy to establish the present-day Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran used to be a monarchy, and then this family, the Shah, or the Pahlavi Dynasty, I think is what they called it, was the ruler of Iran. And now this person is now deceased. This Mohammad Reza Pahlavi that actually ruled in Iran before the Iranian Revolution is deceased, but his son is living. So some of the key things about the Pahlavi dynasty that a lot of Iranians have an issue with is actually how pro-Western a lot of the administration seems to be. So like I mentioned you guys in my previous video where I went through the oil industry of Iran and went through the nuclear program, which you guys, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But like I mentioned, the reason why they were actually able to trade efficiently, effectively, whatever, the oil was during the ruling of these leaders, which were all named Mohammad Reza Shah. Like they were all, again, they had pro-Western ideologies, policies, administrations, so the U.S. was able to find deals with them. Now, I am not saying, just to be very clear now, I'm not saying that this was the way to go. If we see this family in place again, then we know that there was a regime change. And just to show you, this is not me just saying like, oh, like, you know, they had pro-Western philosophies and that's why this is proof that they were like paid for by the U.S. No. Let's get into a little bit of history about the Pahlavi dynasty and the Pahlavi family. So this is an article from American Experience, and it says, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, also known as Mohammad Reza Shah, the last Shah, courted a very close relationship with the United States and its leaders for almost 3 decades. The American Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, and the British Secret Intelligence Service, SIS, developed a secret plan to overthrow the then democratically elected Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Codenamed Operation Ajax, the CIA carried out the plan in August 1953 and put the Shah in control of Iran. The Shah maintained a close strategic relationship with the United States and its presidents for the next 26 years, until the Shah's overthrow in the Iranian Revolution in 1979. So like I said, this is not just me throwing shit to the wall and just hoping that it sticks. There is evidence of a relationship between the Pahlavi family working with the CIA to actually impose regime change on Iran. And as you can see here, this mentioned the Iranian Revolution. That was actually the second time that this Shah was exiled from Iran. There was another operation where they put this Shah into power, and he was also exiled from Iran because the people did not want this person to be ruling the country. I'm going to show you guys actually some of the photos of the Shah visiting the US, or the friendly relationship between the US and the Shah. Now, I have nothing against the modern day Reza Pahlavi, but I did watch an interview that he did recently, and the way that he was talking about Iran, it felt a little bit like, I want to take over this country. That's the vibe that it was giving. It wasn't like, wait, I want to restore my people. Like, I have a vision for our country. It was like, we need to get rid of this government, this current government. That's how he was implying it. But enough of me yapping. We have the video. Let's play that video.
But you cannot hope to have an equal playing field where you don't empower the people of Iran without taking the teeth, or the the fangs out of this tiger that the regime is. It has to be declawed, literally. So you cannot have a chance of bringing real change in nations that want to have change by continuing to, in fact, reward this regime by giving them more means that they shouldn't have had in the first place. And that's the question that many Iranians ask. Is you're not punishing the regime, you're in fact emboldening them by giving them more means to carry out their sinister goals.
Now, I talk about the leadership here because I think that there is a conception right now that Iran is this backwards country that needs help. It needs the US's help. Again, like I keep saying, whenever it's about a humanitarian issue or we want to save these oppressed people, it's usually never that, because it's like, why would the US invest money in another country when there are people here in this country who are suffering with whatever. The US doesn't care practically about people's actually well-being, because if it did, then it would do that for its own inhabitants before it spends that money outside of it. So you always know there's something going on here. We ever hear that being floated around, but I bring up these leaders because it's evident that the Iranian people are the one that do not want these leaders. It's like if we tried to bring Xi Jinping, which is the current president of China, into the U.S. and people are like, okay, but wait, we didn't sign up for that. Okay, I don't want to live in a communist. I do not want to live in a communist country myself, so I didn't sign up for that. Now, just to prove this point a little bit further, let's get into some stats, and these are stats related to women specifically, because again, this is another specific point that keeps getting made, which is, okay, we need to save the women. They're in this oppressive religion that makes them wear the hijab, that makes them do this and do that, and be submissive to their husbands. And they can't, there's no possibility that they want to do that themselves. It has to be that they are being oppressed. But let me, like I said, let me show you some stats. These stats are after, they're showing after the Iranian Revolution. So this is after that Pahlavi dynasty. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was the ruler of Iran. Pulling up the statistic here, we can see that in 2015, the female literacy rate was 87%. That is after the Islamic Revolution. Before that, we see that it is at 37%. We can also see enrollment rate in tertiary education, which is like a master's, PhD, and that is 2014, 66%. And that is a huge jump from just 4% in 1977. I also saw another stat somewhere else where it said that there's actually more women enrolled in tertiary education than there are male students. So that's another one too. Like, there is movement on at least equalizing the playing field, even in the context of whatever traditions that are shared by their religion, or maybe cultural traditions that place women submissively to men. I think the important thing to note about that too is, like, when we're in the US, it's like there are women who just want to be mothers, okay? There are women who want to have a lot of children, and people say that that's oppressive, and a lot of conservatives say that is actually an ideal lifestyle. The woman fulfills certain duties, the man fulfills certain duties, and that's an ideal lifestyle. But other people say it's oppressive. And I think everybody wants to do something slightly different, and that is okay. Just like Iran, there are people who probably want their religion to be part of the government system. So we can't really fully understand that unless we are inhabitants of that place. I am certain that there is corruption in the country, that there is other human rights violations. I'm certain of it because I've heard Iranians describe it themselves. Mainly, I would say more Iranian Americans or people who migrated to the US. So it could be a little bit touchy on where that information is coming from. I want to point out that TikTok, which largely I believe should be credited for people's awareness of what was going on in Palestine with the Israel-Palestinian conflict. But I'm going to show you here, this is a map actually of all the countries with various degrees of banning TikTok, but the darker red is a full ban, nationwide ban on TikTok, and you can see that Iran has a full nationwide ban on TikTok. Because I will say, as a TikTok user, from what I was seeing when I was scrolling, I don't know if you guys saw this too, but I was seeing a lot of Iranian Americans being like, we stand with America, we support America, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, after the first one, I was like, okay, cool, like, that's your opinion, no issue, like, no issue with you standing with America, you can do whatever you want. But then second, third, fourth, fifth, I was like, okay, wait, this feels a little bit like we're paying for this campaign. And also, they don't have access to publicize information on them themselves. And just to continue on this topic of even just normalizing Iran, because I will be honest with you guys, I have not seen a photo of Iran, I've not seen videos of anything, I don't know what people even look like, dress like, nothing like that. So I was like, okay, let me dig on TikTok, let me see if people was just like went to travel there and film something, and I found a lot of stuff. I'm gonna actually play for you guys some of those as I'm just talking over them, but you can see, okay, this is like Iran's first mall, a biggest mall, one of the biggest malls in the world is in Iran, and it's like super gorgeous, like super nice, luxurious. What are people wearing in Iran? And they're showing like women on the street, people in a bookstore, people in the mall, like just people walking around. I'm like, okay, it's like a very regular town. And then I think this one's like more travel oriented because it's very beautiful. Like you can see a lot of stuff here. Iran is a place like a lot of other places. If you guys have ever been to a big city, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, then it kind of looks the same. And then we have Caroline Levitt, who is saying again that no, we actually should stand with Iran. If Iranian people want to fight against their oppressive and horrible government, then they should have the right to do that. Let's empower them to do so.
When the president is floating the idea of regime change, how does he believe that should be accomplished? Through the Iranians, the Israelis, or the Americans? The president's posture and our military posture has not changed. The president was just simply raising a question that I think many people around the world are asking. If the Iranian regime refuses to give up their nuclear program or engage in talks, we just took out their nuclear program on Saturday night, as you all know. But if they refuse to engage in diplomacy moving forward, why shouldn't the Iranian people rise up against this brutal terrorist regime? That's a question the president raised last night. But as far as our military posture, hasn't changed.
But was anybody even like protesting their government? What I remember is that Iranians came to the streets after Israel attacked them, bombed them, and were protesting Israel, protesting the US, protesting that foreign influence. And you want to know what's so funny? And we're going to get to this, I think, in a different video, but well, it's not really funny, but really there are a lot of governmental changes happening in Israel right now. And so much so that Israel was seeing one of its largest protests. I'm going to show you photos from the protests. You're going to see how many people that there are there. And just to give you a little context into this protest, I'm going to read you guys this article from pbs.org, if we can pull it up. It says, Israel lawmakers approve key aspect of Netanyahu's judicial overhaul despite mass protests. So just to read you guys a snippet from this, in Monday's vote, lawmakers approved a measure that prevents judges from striking down government decisions on the basis that they are unreasonable. Proponents say the current reasonability standard gives unelected judges excessive power over decision-making by elected officials. Sorry, I made that a little dry. But critics of the government say it removes a key element of the court's oversight powers and opens the way for corruption and improper appointments. So basically, this is like if we were like, okay, actually, yes, we're going to take in what the Supreme Court says, but we're going to maybe like not weigh it as equally. And if you're not familiar with the U.S. system, obviously we have our three main branches, and the goal of those branches is to balance the powers of each of them so that not one branch can overtake the other. But essentially what's happening here is there's a weakening of that judiciary branch. And the reason why I want to revisit this topic of these protests is because Israel is a state in which if there is a declaration of war that is going on, then the president and a small cabinet of like selected advisors actually have more power during times of war. They have more power over specifically the military. The reason why I'm talking about these points that keep being mentioned in Western, more specifically US media, is because it's important to understand how they try to position Israel so that when that kind of a regime change happens, when that kind of a backlash happens, that we're not thinking that they placed this leader here, that we're thinking that actually the US did the right thing. The people that are mad are obviously people who do not want progress, who do not want Western values. Like, they're the weird ones, they're the odd ones. We actually help them. So again, let's go back to this quote which keeps being used, which is death to America. I'm going to just read you guys this article from Fox News. Iran vowed, quote, death to America and its leaders for decades before Trump wiped out nuclear facilities. So we see this kind of publication, we see these kinds of talking points that are coming out, and I think it's just important to understand what that phrase is. You know, they're saying, hey, Iran is saying death to America to all of us. Okay, they're saying it in English, they're saying it in their language, like what's the exact translation? What does that mean? Because it's a slogan. I mean, if anybody has ever been to a protest or just seen a protest, like they're like, hey, hey, hey ho, blank must go. Hey, hey, hey ho. Like, I'm like, it's not to be taken like at exact face value. You know, it's supposed to be just a quick little phrase. All right, so this is an article from Al Jazeera. It says, Khamenei's death to America aimed at US leaders, not people. So just skimming through this article, we can see Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has defended the Death to America chants that are a standard fare at anti-US rallies across Iran, but said the slogan was aimed at American leaders and not its people. It says Khamenei's website on Friday quoted him as saying the chant meant death to US leaders, death to US President Donald Trump and John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. It means death to American rulers. We have nothing against the American people, he said. Now, I do want to note here that somebody actually had commented on one of my TikTok videos, because I did cover this topic on TikTok, and somebody who I believe speaks the language that's spoken in Iran said, also to add as an Iranian, death to in Farsi isn't exactly death to in English. You can say death to traffic in Iran or death to these prices. It's not as much of an intense meaning as it is in English. So this is one of my suspicions that I had, because I was like, when I was hearing it, I was like, I don't know. I speak Spanish and I also speak Chinese. Chinese, there are certain sayings that are just, they could just sound funny when they're translated in English. Some of the sayings can also be like this, where it's like death to or like kill this, but it's like it doesn't actually mean that. If you directly translate it over, then it like would mean that. Do you understand what I'm saying? All in all, what we can see is that there is heavy influence from the US side, from Western forces, and I mean that more Israel/US, who are currently teaming up on these efforts to portray Iran in a certain light in the media so that we can feel like, wait, we are helping Iran, their government is corrupt and it should be taken out, among other things. And so I think it's just very important to pay attention to these regime changes, because oftentimes is serving the purpose of a Western government. If Iran is to have a new leadership, then it should be on their own terms. It should not be on the US placing a government in place for them. I am though curious what you guys think. Should America support a regime change in Iran or should it not? Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye everybody.